Hello, Professor Camara. I hope I said that right. This is Doug Tilford, and this is my 5-minute video on how I use Christian psychology as a theological integrative model in the handbook I prepared. So I will begin. The first thing I thought of as I began to produce this handbook is that all truth is God's truth. I was reminded of Jesus' words in the book of John. Jesus, when answering Pilate, says, "For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." John 18:37. Also, God states in Psalm 119, 160, "All your words are true, and all your righteous laws are eternal." Whether we find that truth through science or through biblical counsel, as the old saying goes, truth is truth. Let's look at 3 aspects of good counseling: establishing a relationship, listening well, and asking good questions. We'll look at these 3 aspects through both psychological science and a biblical worldview. Establishing a relationship. In the book Becoming a Helper, Chapter 6, Stage 1 of the Change Model, the authors state, helpers are expected to create a relationship in which clients can reveal their story, identify what they want to change, and attain a new method for dealing with their problems. Trust is one of the most important steps in any counseling relationship. The client will not be open to telling you what is going on unless they trust you. In 1 Peter, the apostle states, "Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gifts you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." 1 Peter 4, 8 through 10. In James, the apostle exhorts Christians to confess their sins to one another and pray for each other. James 5:16. From these scriptures, although not explicitly said, it is clear that before the counselor can help, they need to establish trust and build relationship. In both scripture and psychological science, trust for each other is mandatory for the counseling relationship to be successful. Listening well. In the book Intentional Interviewing and Counseling, Chapter 3, the authors state, listening is more than hearing and seeing. You can have perfect vision and hearing, but be an ineffective listener. Listening is more than just hearing words. It's hearing what is being said and paying attention to body language or the observable behaviors. The authors go on to state, it is the observable behaviors that affect the client immediately. Culturally or appropriate eye contact, supportive body language, and facial expression. Verbal, following without topic jumps, and showing you understand underlying emotions via the tone of your voice. In the same chapter, the authors state, the way one attends deeply affects what is talked about in the session. Scripture also tells us listening well is an important aspect of any relationship. In the biblical book of James, James tells us that everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1:19. In the book of Proverbs, it states, to answer before listening, that is folly and shame. Proverbs 18:13. The art of listening well in both the biblical and the scientific worldview is a priority. We must listen well if we are going to be successful people helpers. Good questions. In Intentional Interviewing Counseling, the authors quote the following from Robert Heller and Tim Hindle. Asking questions of your client can be helpful in establishing a basis for effective communication. The authors go on to state that effective questions encourage more focused client conversations with more pertinent details and less wandering. They also state that an open question could facilitate free discussion and leave plenty of room for talk. Questions like, what would you like to talk about today? Or, could you tell me what prompted you to see me? Are open-ended questions that can provide important information for the counselor. In the Gospels, Jesus asked 183 questions. One of Jesus' most profound questions was in the Gospel of Matthew when Jesus states, "But what about you?" he asked, "Who do you say that I am?" Matthew 16:15. Another example is from the Gospel of Mark. In the story of blind Bartimaeus, Bartimaeus is sitting by the roadside when Jesus passes by. Bartimaeus calls out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Mark 10:47. Jesus calls him over and asks, "What do you want me to do for you?" Mark 10:51. It appears that Jesus is using this open-ended question to draw out Bartimaeus, to get him to verbalize his problem. Both of these are open-ended questions that Jesus used to help and to teach. Both are great examples of open-ended questions that require a heart response. Again, both psychological science and scripture agree with the importance of good questions. In summary, I used both biblical counseling tools and psychological science to develop my handbook. There's no controversy in using the tools that science has provided, as long as they don't challenge biblical principles. We must remember that all men are created in the image of God and given the power of discovery, whether Christ followers or not. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen.